welcome to the Introduction to Excel tutorial series. In this lesson, we're going to look at some very basic arithmetic and math operations and functions. So let me show you what I mean. We have all these tabs down here at the bottom, so I'll just go over to the one that says Basic Math, and I'll select it. So here we have a spreadsheet or worksheet that has some very simple math operations on it. We have in this column over here, the first column, we have just some of the text that describes what we're going to be doing. And in the second column, we have some numbers, and then we have some values that actually get calculated by Excel. So for example, 5 plus 2 is 7, 5 minus 2 is 3, 5 times 2 is 10, and so on and so on. Now, if I change one of these numbers, as we know, it's going to recalculate the spreadsheet. So I just change that and make that 3. Then all the numbers are recalculated. If I make it 4, same type of thing, I get new values. So let's see what's happening here. It's very simple stuff. If we go to the formulas and say show formulas, then we can see what we've got going on. So we have the 5 and the 4, or any data values. And then the answers start to appear below because of these formulas. So this one says equal sign B1 plus B2. So obviously the plus sign does addition. And the same thing is true with the minus sign, so B1 minus B2, the first value minus the second value, and so the minus sign stands for subtraction. And then we want to do multiplication, so we have B1 and then an asterisk and B2. And so it turns out that that symbol, asterisk, stands for multiplication, so B1 times B2. And then we need a division symbol, so we have the slash, so we say B1 slash B2, and that's division. So 5 divided by 4 gives us the answer that we want. And we can do exponentiation, so a number raised to a certain power. And so in this case, we use the symbol that's in the middle there, the caret, and we have B1 caret B2, and in mathematical terms, B1 raised to the power of B2. So we have an exponent. Then we can also use parentheses, and parentheses kind of override the order of operations because the order of operations that applies to all the arithmetic equations applies here as well. So in this formula, we have parentheses around B1 plus B2. So we're going to do that addition first because it's inside of parentheses. And then we're going to divide that by 2. And that's going to give us an answer. It happens to be the average. We just say B1 plus B2 divided by 2. So it's the total divided by 2 gives us the average. So that's it for the basic math operations. I'll go back to taking the formulas off. And if I go and look at some additional things that we can do, there's some functions that we can perform using numbers. And so I go over to that tab that says Basic Math Functions. And here I have a group of values. So all these values that are going down in this all the way down to 16. And then I have some things that calculate automatically through Excel. So I have the number of values, the minimum value, the maximum, the sum, and then the average, and something called the standard deviation. So if we go here and look at our numbers, we just have numbers. If I change one of them, it's going to change everything. So if I say that this is going to be 5,000, then watch what happens. Everything down below changes to new values, and so it's recalculating everything. Now if I come back and put in a more reasonable number, 12, it's going to stay within the range of what we're doing here. So let's take a look and see what the functions look like. If we go again to formulas on the top, and then over here where it says show formulas, and now we can see what's going on down at the bottom of the spreadsheet. So we have all these numbers again, and then we come down here to row 18, and we have a function called count. And as you might imagine, that just counts how many values are in the range that we have specified. So we say count, and then inside of parentheses, B3 through B16, and as you can see, it's highlighted up here in the blue, the area that we're dealing with. And so then that's going to count how many things are there. Well, it turns out that there's 14 things there, and that's what we know. And then the next one is the min function, and that calculates the minimum value. So it looks at all the values that are in the list, and it said, here's the minimum value. And same thing with the next one. Max figures out the maximum value that's in the range from B3 through B16. Sum, we already looked at in a previous lesson. That is the addition of all of the values that are there, so it's the sum. And then we have a couple of new ones at the bottom here. something called average. So it takes a look at all the numbers and figures out which one is the average number. And the way it does that mathematically is it just adds together all the values that are in the range, and then it divides that by the number of values. So that you could do that with a couple of other functions. You could say the sum function adds together everything, divided by the count function, which would be how many are there. But you don't have to do it that way. You can just say average. And so you get the average value of all of the numbers that are in the range. And then the last one I'll show you this time is something called the standard deviation. And this is a term that comes out of statistics, and it's used to figure out how much of a distribution is there around the average number. How wide is that distribution? And what I mean by that is if it's a real large number, that tells us that all the numbers that are in this group here are pretty far apart from each other. If it's a smaller number, then it says mathematically or statistically that these numbers are close to each other, closer to each other. So if we go back and look and see what the value is, it's 4.3, and then additional numbers, decimal numbers. We have something that says that's pretty close to each other, relatively close, because we have all these numbers up here that are in this series. If they all were the same number, exactly the same number, then the standard deviation would be 0 because it would not have any deviation at all from the main number. But that's not going to be the case in numbers. So numbers have standard deviations and averages that are reported basically just by the values of the numbers. There are a lot more of the functions that are here. I just wanted to show you some of the common ones that are used in mathematical and statistical operations. So I wanted to show you those, and so there they are. Well, that's it for this lesson. Next time we'll look at some more advanced things that we can do with functions and additional math values and pretty practical applications. So we'll see you next time. Thanks.